Let's see the difference between the 6 genera that are there in the syllabus of undergraduate botany. In a comparative way, we'll study about the vegetative structure, the mode of asexual, vegetative and sexual reproduction, and we'll also study about the life cycle patterns, how they differ from each other in our following video, as we have already said. So, if we look into the vegetative structure of Saccharomyces, Saccharomyces is unicellular. We all know from very childhood science, from the day when we started studying life science, we know yeast or Saccharomyces is unicellular. Here they look as multicellular because due to budding, new cells are produced, and these cells, they are attached to each other and they have a pseudo-mycelium like structure, and so they appear to be multicellular, but actually they are unicellular. Alternaria is multicellular, it is filamentous, and it has got unicellular hyphae, and these hyphae being septate, as it is characteristic of all Ascomycetes. Aspergillus is also septate, and the septa are branched and filamentous. We should remember that all these members, Saccharomyces, Alternaria, Aspergillus, Penicillium, Neurospora, they all have got one or the other nickname. So Saccharomyces is known as the alcohol mold or the fermentation mold. It also sometimes grows on bread, so this is also a bread mold. Alternaria is also known as plant mold, or since it causes diseases on the plants. Aspergillus is known as the black or the green mold. Penicillium, as I have already told you, they are known as the green or the blue mold, and Neurospora as the red bread mold, and Peziza, this is known as the cow dung growing fungi. So, the cell wall of Saccharomyces is mainly made up of mannan and chitin, and sometimes glucan is also present. But in contrast to this Saccharomyces, in others the presence of cellulose and chitin is found in case of Aspergillus. Alternaria also, it has got cellulose and chitin, and all of these, Penicillium, Neurospora and Peziza, they also have cellulose and chitin in their cell wall. So the vegetative reproduction, if we look into the vegetative reproduction, Saccharomyces vegetative reproduction takes place by budding. Budding is formation. Here we see the formation of budding, that is from the parent cell, new cell or daughter cell arises from its side, but it gets attached or remains attached to the parent cell, and a series of these daughter cells, they look like pseudo-mycelium, and this is budding, and here we see fission, that is one parent cell or mother cell gets divided, a wall forms between two indentation or this curve here. Here the wall develops and it forms two daughter cells. This type of vegetative reproduction is known as fission. Alternaria doesn't show vegetative reproduction, it mainly shows sexual reproduction by means of conaria. Aspergillus also same thing. The vegetative reproduction is not that prominent. Only Penicillium here shows fragmentation, that is the thallus, which is multicellular, it breaks into small parts, and in this small part or the portion of the thallus, it regenerates a new thallus, and this is this type of vegetative reproduction is fragmentation. So now let's quickly see that, and one more thing, that is the cell wall of all these, starting from Alternaria to Peziza, all of them, they have got simple pore in the wall of the hyphae between the two cells. Now let's see the sexual mode of reproduction of Saccharomyces, Alternaria and Aspergillus, here Penicillium, Neuros, and Peziza. Asexual reproduction in case of Saccharomyces takes place by endospore. Endospores you have already studied in bacteria in your semester 1. These endospores, they are hard, thick-walled structure that can bear or overcome adversities, and only on finding favorable condition they can germinate. Alternaria, they can germinate or they can reproduce asexually by formation of conidia. Two conidia may be in chains, and these conidia are multicellular, and some cross partitions are there on the conidia. And in case of Aspergillus, here also conidiospores are there, and these conidiospores, they are arranged in basipetal order on sterigma or pheolites, and these pheolites are borne on vesicle. This vesicle, it looks like the sporangium of the Zygomycetes, members of Zygomycetes that you have already studied. And these conidia, they are basipetally borne, that is, the elder or the matured spores, they moved outwards, and the less mature or the younger spores, they remain closer to the sterigma surface. So this is the vesicle, these are the pheolites, and these are the sterigma. These are the pheolites actually, these are the sterigma, and on the surface of these sterigma you find the conidiospores, and this is conidiospores, or better it is known as conidia. And this is the conidiophore, and the vegetative cell from which the vegetative part of the thallus from which the conidiophore arises is known as the foot cell. So, Penicillium again, it also shows asexual reproduction by means of, again, conidiospores. These conidiospores, they are borne on the sterigma, and sterigma are borne on the pheolites. These pheolites, they bear sterigma on their tips, and these sterigma on their tip bear conidiospores or conidia. These the asexual structure or the sterigma bearing conidia, it looks more or less like broom of a witch. So this genus is known as the witch's broom. This state of the genus is known as witch's broom. And Neurospora again, it is capable of producing conidia, and these conidia are of two types, macroconidia and microconidia. Macroconidia are again basipetally borne. The matured ones are outwards, and the younger ones are more closer to the sterigma. And Peziza, they usually do not show a sexual reproduction. And sexual reproduction for Saccharomyces is very simple, and you may be surprised to know that sexual reproduction of Saccharomyces happens only when the conditions are unfavorable, but generally it undergoes vegetative and asexual reproduction. And this happens by the gametangial copulation, that is, the two gametangia, that are two unicellular parts or fragments, they unite by a beak-like structure, and the nuclei fuses together and forms the zygote. From this zygote, the naked asci are produced on the stroma, And so this group is placed under Hemiascomycetes, and they have got some naked ascus. See, this is ascus bearing the ascospores. And here in case of Alternaria, this ascus, they are produced within a stroma or within a close organized structure. This type of structure is known as the mycostroma or mycostroma specifically, and these ascus, they contain the ascospores, and fertilization of the male and the female nucleus takes place by gametangial copulation. That is very typical of Ascomycetes, and from the fusion of the zygote that results, that this produces, by meiosis, it produces ascus or the haploid ascospore, ascus bearing haploid ascospores. Here again the fruit body in case of Aspergillus is organized into Clistothecium. Clistothecium are closed football-like structure, and the ascus are borne on the tip of this Clistothecium. Clistothecium is present in case of Aspergillus as well as in case of Penicillium. This type of Clistothecium is there. But in case of Penicillium, the Clistothecium is completely closed and covered, and the ascus bearing ascospores are present inside. Here we see the type of gametangial copulation where the male, this is the male gametangium or antheridium, and this is the female. It twines around the female gametangium, then the nucleus gets fused. Here again we see the crosio formation. The crosio formation is found in case of Neurospora crassa as well as in case of Penicillium. And then in case of Neurospora, the type of sexual reproduction or the fruit body, first of all, it is perithecium, where the fruit body is like a pitcher or it is like a earthen pot, and it has just a hole here which is known as the ostiole, and through this ostiole the ascospores that are produced in the ascus, they are released through this ostiole. And again the sexual reproduction in case of Neurospora is also gametangial copulation. And Peziza, as you have already seen the fruit body in the in a slide, they have a cup-like fruit body, and this type of fruit body is known as apothecium. And this apothecium, it bears the ascus on the surface of the apothecium, on the inner surface, and it is spread all throughout the apothecium, in contrast to the perithecium where the ascus containing the ascospores are present only at the base of the perithecium. And that's all for about the difference between the 6 genera. I'll be sharing my slides and the descriptions of the genera with you all in some of my videos ahead. And so stay tuned to know more about the life cycle patterns.